rights.
Yeah.
And of course, it was quite amazing. Yeah.
We paid for all the printing of everything, the posters, postcards, limited editions.
So they paid 10 for the
Because
original, and you had the rights to reproduce it as you wished, and you did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we remained with all rights, which actually at a later date it could have worked out, but that's another story. And even today, if we wished to reproduce, we could. And that's the thing. Once they pay, then they keep, the actual rights. And we want to be, we always like to be in charge of Paul's work and any reproductions.
Yeah. We're very careful with prints. We don't do any prints hardly ever. So the fact that because we know what happens with prints, they can print a million of them, and you never know, you can't control it. You never know where they're going, who's handling them,
But the next thing is, we have 800 limited editions, and which worked out very well for us, of course, is that the first 100, they wanted Paul to personally sign and dedicate to...
For the credit unions all over BC.
There's 100 credit unions in BC.
And they were all framed as well. They had to all be framed. So we used our framer.
Yeah.
And he did all the framing.
Davey Artshop did all that. And it was wonderful, of course. I mean, they were everywhere you were in Vancouver. And it was quite a big reproduction, wasn't it, the size?
So they were given, is that right? They were given as a gift?
The 100 were given to the credit unions.
They had to buy those off us,
That's right. They had to buy them off us. But
they did,
framed.
Okay.
And, of course, the posters and the postcards, UNICEF, they sold...
And I had to go down to the site every week or two to do a signing, where I'd be signing limited editions or the posters for people, and sometimes it was like a few hundred people all queuing up to take posters. And they were the posters were selling for, I think, quite a reasonable price, wasn't it? $25 or something.
I think. I mean, it's crazy, but people, because I ended up hardly any editions were left over. But you see, if we didn't have the rights, I wouldn't have had them in my hand. And later we put them at 1,000 because there was only maybe a dozen left. Yeah. And then the posters as well. We did have maybe 200 of those left, which throughout quite a few years we sold those frames.
Some left,
have you got? I was going to say, have you got some left?
They love that.
Yeah,
a
few
not now,
if I can find them.
Yeah, we might have a dozen. We tried to always put something away, like for the family collection, but they're deep in the.
And of course, while the expo was on, of course, we were going down. I was getting all kinds of interviews with televisions were coming in from Europe and everything. And we would go to all the events, to the VIP lounge meeting. Oh, it's really interesting. And then eventually I met the future King of Spain, shook hands with him.
Yeah, that was nice.
That was nice. And I met... and Joanne was with us, of course. You came with us, of course. I forgot, Joanne. You shook his hand too.
Well, that's because of the Spanish club, right?
That's right, yeah. And, of course, Prince Charles and Diana was there.
Yeah, well, we didn't meet them.
It was quite an event.
Even though you're British, Paul.
That's right, And my posters, of course. Not my posters. My limited editions were given to Danny Kaye and the Prince,
the head of the UN in New York.
The head of New York.
Oh, really?
Princess of Spain, the Infantina Cristina.
Right. So everybody got a limited edition.
So sitting in the Palace of Spain, there is possibly a Yagartua, not original, but a Yagartua print. Tala was asking me to ask you guys, or perhaps you more, Joanne, about that. To use this financial questions as a lead in to ask you how, as a bit of a side discussion on how you manage through all these years to manage the financial side of, because Paul is lucky. He's lucky to have you there to basically take care of everything that is not interesting to him.
Yeah, it works out well, and because of my background, I was fortunate to work for my father altogether for 7 years. So, he had, between Canada and the United States. I mean, really, it was an international business, and everything is to do with money. Everything's to do with, as we discussed previously. You got money coming in, you got money going out. You got to make sure that you're making enough to pay wages, and so
30 employees.
Yeah, at 17, I started as. We were called previously that I had that 3 years first before we went to England. And I never was considering a job with my father at all. But anyways, it just happened. And of course, I'm forever grateful because, it made things easy. I was brought up in a household.
Didn't bother you. You wouldn't get flustered if anything.
Well, I mean, you just always
being with an artist. It can be a little precarious financially to be.
Well, I always say
worried about anything.
Well, first of all, you have to have structure. You have to be, well, for me anyways, a brilliant artist is pretty important, and prolific, and somebody who...
Yeah, you got to be able to make money.
It won't work if, everybody's different and they do things differently. Our lifestyle, obviously, some people would say it was pretty risky. I mean, I don't know why. You can always...
And the most frightening thing in the world for me was the very first time I had to go out and sell my own paintings on the street. That was got to be, I mean, I think I had about 4 beers before I went out just to get myself hyped up.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I had to psych myself up because when you're on the street, you meet people who tell you you're rubbish. And
yeah.
Say,
not really,
but he loves you're up
act
against,
like...
Yeah, or you imagine people will, so you're not...
Sure, but there's drunks out there, there's all kinds of people, you know what I mean, street people.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not logical, it doesn't matter, but the thing is, you've got to be able to face that. So with that combination of me and Joanne, with the way she was so confident.
I sold in sitches. I met only nice people.
Well, you're a woman. You never get the abuse.
He likes the raw. He likes the raw element there.
Yeah,
very risky.
I used to meet some crazies, of course.
Anyways, but
did you like? I imagine you preferred to be. Can you say in the dark about the finances? I'm not sure whether you were in the dark or whether you are, or I can imagine as an artist you want that.
Really, Joanne she used to say, "Oh, we need this much money." I said, oh, "Okay, I'll go out and get it." It was like to me, it was just a matter of I knew how to go out there and sell paintings, and that was my job.
Yeah, he's very good at selling as well. And as I mentioned before, we were everywhere all the time. Yeah, okay, if artists find that it's near impossible, well, it's not only being with a gallery. You yourself also have to do all the shows.
Yeah, sure.
It is difficult if you're on your own without working with anybody.
Joanne used to make a plan when we did the show.
Yeah, there was non-stop.
She almost had in her head the amount of money we needed to make.
Yeah, always.
And we always made it.
Yeah, it's a good...
You set yourself a goal ahead of time and then you aim for it,
Deadlines are wonderful, also for an artist. He works towards a deadline. I work towards my deadline. I used to like to always have a figure in my head because... It's just crazy. You say, I'm going to do it, and that's what I'm going to make. And generally you do. I tell you, if you got nothing in your head like going anywhere or any sort of amount that you need in your hand, you probably won't. I don't know. There's something about it in the air. And I used to talk to other artists, some of those big shows, and they would say, hey, just decide what you're going to make and you'll do it.
They all wanted Joanne to work. They all needed a Joanne. That's the problem,
Well, I said,
but you know what
my work is dedicated to only one.
Yeah, but when you've got two people working on the same goal, there's no distractions. If you've got... Most couples I know who one's an artist, the other's something else, and they don't.
Indeed.
One doesn't care about what the other one's doing, and it's a problem,
Yeah.
Whereas when there's two of you like us, both working for the same idea,
And then the other thing that's so important, like I guess only recently. I mean, our children never even thought of it either, right? Things just always were, they're planned and they work out. But just recently, like, I've been asked, well, didn't you ever worry? And I said, hey, I grew up in a household with my father, as we mentioned before. He was only positive. Yeah, it's like the Buddhists, that mentality can get you through life a lot easier. I do understand people that have been brought up in a household where, oh, you can't do this. Well, sure, you're handicapped before you even start. So
it reminds me of what you said before about as long as you know where you want to go and you know how to get there, then it's fine. And that is all to do with your plan making and your organisation, which is probably partly in your genes, but obviously the upbringing and the experience with your father taught you some very rigorous, methods of keeping the wheels turning in a business. And
that's right.
And you're lucky enough to have Paul, who, through nature, through nature is a very prolific painter, which is pretty rare.
Oh, unbelievable. No, it's so rare.
I'm her muse.
That's right. It's unbelievable. And so for my side, I always feel, hey, I have not done enough. Paul always does more than enough. And but the other thing is, with artists throughout the years, I would sometimes say, hey, you work with certain subjects, but if they're not working, why not look at new subjects? Always, venture out and try something new. Often they will stick to one thing, right, Paul? And it's just,
sure.
If it's not working out, you got to change it.
I mean, sure. I mean,
you have to be flexible.
The most frightening thought in my mind was to ever have to go out and get a job. So, I mean, I was like, if ever the threat was over me to get a job, I'd get out there and make money any way I could, rather than have to look for a job. Can you imagine?
The motivation
never
was
worked
there.
for anybody else in my life. It would be a horrible thing to think I had to start that.
But the other side, of course, I always say. Well, I'm used to it, right? Master juggler, because, look, there's a lot of things in your hand. Like, first of all, you've got certain, like even with the Expo, I think that printing company gave me 2 months with no interest before. Maybe I could pay before, but, you ask in situations like that, hey, look, can you give me 2 months? Or, so always, here in North America, not in Europe.
But got credit cards as well. They don't have them in Europe the same.
Our credit cards, first of all, you got 30 days there, right?
We could put $30,000 on it as long as we paid it off, or we'd pay the interest, so...
Yeah, if you need to use it and pay a little bit of interest for a short period of time, it gives you the time needed where your money is coming in. Maybe it's not going to come in for 2 months or whatever. But, hey, to just start off as an artist is not easy. It's an absolute fortune, all your materials. And then you want to go into a show like the New York Art Expo, which we do in the next episode. I always like to have a big space. For 5 days, you're paying $6,000-7,000. Just for the space. All the shows cost a lot of money.
Not
and that's
including airfare, hotels. I mean, it ends up 10,000 anyway. So to begin with, you got to make 10,000 in the show before you can break even.
Yeah.
Sure, because if you want a little tiny space, but we always like a large space. And the thing is, you got your flights, you got your hotel, you got food, you got the whole works. So it's not, it's not that easy.
You've got to be willing to do anything as well. I mean, as an artist,
anything and everything.
I paint whatever people want me to paint as well. Before, now not so much, but I mean. Still, I mean, someone could come to me now and say, I need a portrait of my dog. Well, hey, if the price is right, I might do it.
No, well, you don't do animals, but, but we'll leave this in a second. But when we had the gallery, I always remember there was a woman, she was president of this dog club.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Doggy portraits.
And then we had the kennel people. I think. Oh, no. I don't think you did a lot.
Well, I did a few.
You did a few.
Until one day I found out that
it's impossible.
They love their dogs more than their husbands, and they know their dogs better than they know their husbands.
Wow.
And every little line and hair out of place, they know.
Oh, yeah.
They come to me and say, this hair here, it shouldn't be there. Okay, I think, hang on, wait a minute.
It's like people. That's why he doesn't do portraits.
It's worse than babies, Dogs are worse than babies to paint.
But also with Expo, we were very, because the story, as I said, it gets bigger and better. I mean, this is really crazy.
Never gets